Hey, what's going on? This is Gazerdeal, and today's video is going to be a little different than normal. It's going to be less of a guide video or gameplay video and more of a slight rant. So, my rant is more toward um, the changes in the upcoming season for Diablo 3. And keep in mind, yes, there is a slight bias here as, well, I do main the Demon Hunter, but I also main a Wizard. So, I've played all three, or not all three, thinking of Destiny again. I do play all of the classes. I do have a preference, obviously, on which one I want to play the most. But that is pretty obvious. So, what I'm talking about is in seasons, as you all know, typically there's a meta for group play and a meta for solo play for all classes. Well, not so much the group play as much as the solo play, but you get what I'm coming from. So, essentially, if you go on the leaderboards and look at anything, yeah, right now, Demon Hunter is breaking even with the other top contending positions for solo play. However, and in group play, they actually finally have a position as a ZDPS, which is great. They've they have not actually had that great of a standing for a long time. Before Gears of the Dreadlands came out, and yes, I am not currently using Gears. I have a build for it, but before that came out, what we had was builds like Natalia, Marauder, Hybrid. You have the Unhallowed Essence, multi-shot, stuff like that. Well, and we're just doing background gameplay is just low tier riffs for gym leveling. I got a very, very late start in this season. I started, I think, less than a week ago, so just ignore the background gameplay. It's just there for something to watch. Anyway, so the change that's happening is Gears of the Dreadlands is getting a nerf. It's having its damage increased per shot by 50%, which is great. That's amazing. A little too much of a buff if it were to stay how it is, but they are also putting a limit on how many times it can pierce. Now, the reason why and all the while Necro and Wizard next patch are also getting a pretty substantial buff to the Firebirds and Rothmas respectively. And don't get me wrong, Firebirds hit and Rothmas both could use the buff because, well, they're pretty underperforming in terms of builds, but the buff that they're getting very well could push them, and very well might push them, into absurdly powerful picks. The problem with this is that we had in the past nearly a year, maybe even a year and a half of seasons back to back to back where it was constantly Necro Wizard, Necro Wizard, Necro Wizard, Necro Wizard, and they were the best for both solo and for group play. Now, meanwhile, Demon Hunters in the past, they were like, there was no point in trying to compete with the other classes because you just couldn't. And the argument was always, well, they have the most builds that are competitive against other demon hunters. And okay, that's like saying you do a million things, but you don't do any of them well. I'm sorry, but it's kind of a delusional way of thinking about the game's balancing. If you want build variety, then gut everything else and make everything a build diversity game. That's not what Diablo 3 has become. Diablo 4, probably going to be a different story if they're going back to the older style of Diablo play. But that's not what we have. They also think that by adding in multiple. A lot of people are saying that by adding in the leaderboards for multiple classes, that this is going to fix this issue. And to that, I'm going to say that anyone who says this and actually believes it is either just fanboying because Blizzard is making a change, or they're delusional about how people actually perceive competitiveness in the game. Like, okay, I believe it was Riker who said that, okay, yeah, I may not be the top 100, or, yeah, I'm not even the top 100 on one build, but for my specific build, or in the top 100 of the current meta, but for my build, I'm number one. That's for anyone who plays League. That's like saying that, or not League, that just any competitive game. That's like saying I'm number one in my low S MMR rating. Like I am bottom of the barrel, but I'm number one at the bottom of the barrel. I'm number one. That's the equivalent of what you're saying there. And as far as which is how a lot of people who view things from a competitive stance, if you're purely looking at things from a competitive stance or from a leaderboard stance, this is how a lot of people are going to see it. They're just going to ignore it anyway and still go strictly for what is meta. So, anyway, back to my little tirade about Wizards getting a buff and Necros getting a buff. So we've gone for years with this issue. And yeah, Demon Hunter is one of the more popular classes. And if they're picking it for, if you tell me they're picking it for build diversity, I'm gonna probably say that you're either exceedingly casual about the game, or you probably don't care about the leaderboards at all. And if that's the case, then that's fine. By all means, you do you. It's your life, your game. I don't really care. But the reality is a lot of people more or less find this class to be the funner one. So it's almost like you're just picking the character for fun, which is fine. I mean, it's if that's the approach you want to take it, and a lot of people are casual gamers like that. When it comes to, they're not willing to sit there and farm out thousands of hours. It's actually always been my major gripe with this game, is that Blizzard seems to want to balance this class around the fact that it has a higher player count. And to anyone who would say that Demon Hunters are fine before Gears of the Dreadlands because they have a high player count, I'm going to make this argument right now. Okay, Demon Hunters have the highest player base of every class, which means that they should also have probably the higher highs and the lower lows. Well, if they're the most popular class and they have the most players, and yet they're not even pushing the top 3 of all the other classes in solo builds, that no Demon Hunter just happens to be good in ZDPS or in DPS role for group play, then obviously something's amiss. Because typically, something that's popular has a higher sample size. And yeah, some bits of this ramblings may not make a lot of sense because I'm going back and forth a lot. But I feel like my bottom line point is that I'm kind of, even though I play Wizard, I do play Necro, I do play Monk, but I also play a Demon Hunter. I am, I guess, getting kind of tired of this whole shtick of what, kind of like the Demon Hunter dilemma. It's, you have a lot of build diversity, and none of them are good. And now that we finally have something that is good for Demon Hunters, it's getting nerfed. It's okay for Wizards and Necros to be absurdly powerful and bordering on the same difficulty of use. I mean, literally, this is what you do on Wizard. Oh, Arkin. Riveting gameplay. They come out of Arkin. Okay. With occasionally summoning your own tornado. You don't have any actives that, for your defensive stats, it's a toggle. You just pop your storm armor once in your deflection with your arcane weapon, and boom, wizard's done. Necros, you attack things to get your bone armor, and then you do 1 billion damage, or more than 1 billion damage. Actually, my somewhat under or somewhat geared, not mid maxed buddy, who I play this game with, hit for a 25 trillion and had plenty fine of a time with ad clear. And Necros right now have the same solo Greater Rift as Demon Hunters. So do Wizards. So do Crusaders. And Crusader is also very easy to pull off. The excuse that people are using to justify the nerf for this build particularly is that, oh, it's easy to use. All the builds are easy to use. Every single one of them. There's not a single difficult build in this game. Except for maybe the old school wizard that, and we're talking like way old. Like, it's 4 buttons. And half the time they synergize with each other, so you don't really have to do anything. I don't know why I swapped off builds. So that is kind of my point. It's like, if you're using that argument to justify a build getting nerfed pretty heavy-handedly, then, okay, then the other classes need to be nerfed too. Do I think it's going to kill the Gears of the Dreadlands? No, it's not. That's not the point. I don't think it's going to kill it. I don't think it needs to be nerfed, especially when you see the buff that the Gears of the Dreadlands, or not Gears of the Dreadlands, that the other 3 offenders are getting. Well, not 3, I say 3, I meant 2. Like Necro and Wizard, they are getting colossal buffs. Last I checked, Wizards at maximum stacks of combustion, if they use a single non-channeling spell, it's gonna do 750,000% weapon damage. I'm sorry. Why? Why does it need to do that kind of damage? Do they not already do hit hard enough with trillions on DPS abilities? Do Necros, I believe it was, the Necro one is a little more reasonable because it's for Rothmas. But from the numbers I was seeing, that's still kind of a nuts build. So now we're going to have the Masquerade build and the Rothma build being competitive. So now the one argument that people were using to make demon hunters seem reasonable in the state they were in is null and void. It's like, oh, you have multiple builds that you can go that are all relatively around the same strength. Oh, but I have two builds that are meta builds, and so I have a little more build. I have some build diversity while being better than you with all your build diversity. I don't feel bad for monks getting knocked out of the 4-man meta for now. They have been in the 4-man meta since the inception of the 4-man meta. And it's about damn time they got knocked off their throne. Even if it's only for like a season or two. That's 3 to 6 months. People will get over it. It's not that big a deal. It's better than the several years that the Demon Hunters weren't the best for solo or group play. And any light. One other time we were good for, we had a good Demon Hunter for group play. It was immediately outshined by another build that season. It's like, oh, we have Shadow Impale. Yeah, I have Bone Spear. Says the Necromancer as they proceed to do the exact same job a million times better. And safer, too. Can't forget about the safer part. So, yeah. Now I get it's only two builds. It's not the same as like, okay, well you have N6, M4, and Unhallowed Essence, and Pure Natalia's, and Laud, and okay, so yeah, we have 5 builds. You have 2, but all 5 of those builds are garbage by comparison to the Wizard and the Necro. In like they can't even hold a candle to it. The only reason why I'm using an unhallowed multi-shot build for low-level farming is simply because of the fact that resource management with low density for the Gears of the Dreadlands feels absolutely awful, and it's actually faster for me to do multi-shot for low-level stuff. So I guess, I mean, if you want to make an argument that, hey, you there demon hunters, you got good leveling stuff, good pre-endgame grinding stuff. Okay, so you basically are saying that the only thing a demon hunter is good for is low-tier farming. Basically. That's the gist of it. Do I think, what I think about next season, like, I think they ought to hold off on the nerf. They don't need to buff it. They don't need to change gears. Because of the buffs that they're doing to Rothmas and Firebirds. They're going to very easily outshine Gears of the Dreadlands if these go through. Well, not so much Rothmas. But that Firebird set is way overtuned. The only way that it's gonna be balanced is if it's squishy as hell. Like, I'm talking, like, it has the same issue that it's always had. And that's being a great damage source, but absolutely garbage when it comes to survival. That is the only way that level of absurd damage makes any sense. That is the absolute only way that makes sense to me. Otherwise, there's no reason to play anything but a Firebird Wizard. Unless you're a ZDPS. Like, that's the only way it makes sense. I'm going on a long-ass tirade about this thing. I'm not opposed to power creep. I'm not. I think that power creep is fine. It makes for that holy shit, did you see how hard I just hit for kind of moment. But until you just, you go back at the end of the day and you just realize that whether you're hitting for a trillion or hitting for 100, it's really all about the same. You're still, if they were to do a number crunch and do change it to where, like, okay, my Necro's hitting for 25 trillion on a single ability, not even an empowered crit, it's just a regular hit, 25 trillion. Okay. They will lower it down to where it does only like 1,000 damage, and everything else is typically hitting for hundreds. Okay, that's still by comparison a ridiculously hard hit. You're just changing the numbers that are popping up on the screen. The moment anyone realizes that illusion of holy shit, I just hit for a 25 trillion hit, kind of goes down to like, huh, just hit for 1,000. That's nuts. It's the same. It's just a number much larger than what you're used to hitting. You'll notice that the entire time I have not once mentioned that I think that wizards and necros need to be nerfed. Do I think they're overtuned a lot of times? Yes. I think they're way overpowered in a lot of scenarios. But that's the nature of Diablo 3. Everything is supposed to be overpowered. Keyword, supposed to be. This is why I'm making a tirade about the Demon Hunter. This is the first time the Demon Hunters have been OP in a long, long, long time. Like, the last time we were OP was Shadow and Pale. And for starting a fresh season out, yeah, it's still OP. Fresh, for a fresh season. Oh no, not that one. For a fresh season, it's still OP. It'll get you, and up till Gears was added, it was the OP thing for getting through the early stages. Not even because the set was good. It was OP because you could just spam upgrade daggers and you had like two chances or two options for it to upgrade to. So you were almost guaranteed an ancient good dagger. Carlisle's point. Like, you were guaranteed it. Unless you had like the absolute worst RNG in the world, then you were guaranteed to get one of these things. Then, even with terrible RNG, you were bound to at least get one that was serviceable, that could get you up to your 70 to unlock primals. I just don't want Demon Hunters to get relegated back to that is their only purpose. They're just your early game bitch character to get you to your actual character. Obviously, it doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be a character that strides high above the rest. But I would also like maybe for the Demon Hunters to actually have a little more time in the sun before they're just overshadowed by their wizard and necro overlords. It's not very often that they get their chance to be truly powerful. Now, if you play, again, if you play the character for build diversity, and that's what you find fun, is seeing what wacky builds you can come up with to work at just a T16 level, then this obviously does not apply to you, and the reason you're playing the game is completely different than how a lot of people play the game. There's nothing wrong with that. and the nerf will probably mean nothing at all to you. Hell, you're probably not even worrying about doing that build, to be honest. So, but I do stand by my sentiment that I do believe that they shouldn't even be bothering with the nerf, especially with the other two things getting buffed. I do play the class, obviously, and yes, I'm complaining about their strength in the past. And the argument that can be used for me is, well, if it's so bad and all you care about is leaderboards, why don't you just go play the other classes? Do you ever stop and consider that maybe I don't enjoy playing the other classes as much? That maybe the class that I have the most fun with, I would like to actually be competitive? It's like, I'm not asking for it to be the best. I don't even care if Demon Hunters are a ZDPS in group play. Or, like, here's the way I view it. The logic that I use. That if you have the characters that are the best for group play should not be the best for solo play. And vice versa. Every class should have something that they shine at. That's ideal. That'd be amazing. Like, okay, you have Necro, Witch Doctor, Wizard, Barbarian, Demon Hunter. So you have 5 classes. That means that 4 of them could be godly for group play, and the one that is kind of the outcast is just godly for solo play. They've done it in the past, they know the formula to make it happen. It's just a matter of if they'll actually do it. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. I've been complaining for almost 30 minutes now. Thank you if you've made it this far in the video. And if you want to see more content of this, like this, or just see some other gameplay videos or how-to videos, feel free to like, or not like, but feel free to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon. If you like this content, of course, a like and a comment would be greatly appreciated. That way I know that this type of content is enjoyed and I can make more of it. Without further ado, though, I've been Gazadil, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.